Hello, you're watching Addleshaw Goddard's Employment Channel on the 1st of December. In what is claimed to be the biggest shake-up of employment law for decades, the government's wide-ranging plans to radically reform employment relations announced last week are certainly hitting the headlines at the moment. Today's programme explores the key proposals that the government says are designed to reduce onerous demands on businesses, whilst also safeguarding key employment rights for employees. They include reform of the employment tribunal system, introducing fees for tribunal claims, the extension of the unfair dismissal qualifying period to 2 years, a new system of protected conversations at work, no-fault dismissals for micro-employers, and a slimmed-down dismissal procedure. The changes will come into force from April 2012 onwards. The government has also issued calls for evidence on ways to improve collective redundancy rules and the TUPE regulations, with a view to issuing consultation on changes in both of these areas during 2012. We've already reported in our news programmes on the 13th of October and 24th of November on the government's proposals to extend the qualification period for unfair dismissal claims from 1 to 2 years next April, as well as its plans to consult next year on introducing fees for tribunal claims. However, there are a number of other important proposals in the pipeline, and James Buckley, an associate in our employment team, comments on these in more detail and what they mean for employers.
Another significant proposal is that the government will invite Mr Justice Underhill, the outgoing President of the Employment Appeals Tribunal, to lead a root and branch review of the Employment Tribunal rules. The government has already produced draft terms of reference for the review, which is due to be completed by the end of April 2012, but it will be taking a number of steps towards tribunal reform before the review has been concluded. These steps, due to come into force in April 2012, are to increase the maximum level of deposit orders from £500 to £1,000 per claim, and to increase the cost award that a tribunal can make from £10,000 to £20,000. To require witness statements to be taken as read, unless a judge or tribunal directs otherwise. To withdraw expenses for witnesses, and to require judges to sit alone for unfair dismissal claims. These steps are quite a big change, and witnesses attending tribunal as of April next year should be aware of the changes. For example, the fact that statements will be taken as read will mean that witnesses will be cross-examined as soon as they take to the witness stand, so they'll need to be fully prepared. All the more reason to prepare statements thoroughly and know the contents in advance. Another proposal, which will almost certainly not be welcomed by businesses, is the introduction of financial penalties for employers found to have breached employment rights payable to the government. The penalty will be half of the total award of compensation, the minimum amount being £100 and the maximum being £5,000, but there will be a reduction of 50% for prompt payment. There will also be a discretion not to impose the penalty, so employers are not penalised for inadvertent errors. Although the proposals have been watered down after consultation, fines are now capped and are subject to a judge's discretion. All in all, this represents an additional cost for employers to bear in mind when considering whether to fight claims. The next proposal is the introduction of early conciliation of all employment tribunal claims. Claimants will be required to submit a simple form to ACAS with a view to conciliating the claim, and the conciliation period will last for 1 month. Where early conciliation is refused or unsuccessful, the claimant will then be able to lodge a claim with the tribunal. This sounds like a good idea, but with ACAS already stretched, one wonders how effective it would be in practice. Another initiative that employers need to be aware of is to simplify compromise agreements. This is intended to provide reassurance that agreements can be used safely, and also to enable them to cover existing and future claims without requiring long lists of causes of action. They will also be renamed settlement agreements. The next proposal is to consult on introducing a system of protected conversations, which has had much coverage in the media of late. They would allow employees and employers to have open and frank conversations with each other about employment issues without the existence of a formal dispute, so matters can be resolved without fear of litigation. Again, we'll have to wait and see how this works in practice. The reforms also include closing a loophole in the whistleblowing legislation, so that employees will no longer be able to blow the whistle about breaches of their own employment contract. And the other proposals include seeking views on whether to introduce a no-fault dismissal for businesses with 10 employees or less, to slim down dismissal processes, and this may involve working with ACAS to make changes to the Code of Practice on discipline and grievance, to introduce a rapid resolution scheme, a quicker and cheaper alternative to employment tribunal hearings for low-value, straightforward claims such as holiday pay, And finally, whether to create a universally portable CRB check that can be viewed by employers instantly online from early 2013.
Thanks, James. Separately, the government has also issued 2 calls for evidence on collective redundancy rules and the TUPE regulations, and these can be accessed by clicking on the links below. The calls for evidence seek views on the effectiveness of the current regimes and how, if at all, they might be improved. In relation to collective redundancy, the government wants to explore the possibility of reducing the 90-day period to 60, 45 or 30 days. And in relation to TUPE, the government's concerned that some businesses believe the rules are gold-plated and overly bureaucratic and wants to explore how they might be changed. The calls for evidence close on the 31st of January 2012 and employers and employees are invited to take part. Should the balance of evidence call for possible changes, there'll be further formal consultations on any proposed changes during 2012, so we'll have to watch this space as far as these developments are concerned. So, all in all, what effect these proposals will have on the business of hiring, managing and firing employees on a day-to-day basis remains to be seen. Arguably, the changes represent what is potentially the biggest shake-up of employment law for decades, and most will be welcomed by many employers. We've included links to relevant sources of interest below the screen, and if you have any queries at all on this topic, or indeed have any suggestions in relation to the collective redundancy and TUPE consultations, please do let us know, either by contacting your usual Addleshaw Goddard contact, or by clicking on the Contact Us box to the right of the screen. So, that's all for today from Addleshaw Goddard's Employment Channel. Thank you for watching and goodbye.